The jungle was alive with sound. Birds called from high branches. Insects hummed in the air and leaves rustled as the wind moved through the trees. A young explorer named Toma pushed carefully through the thick green plants. His hands were steady and his eyes shone with excitement. He had dreamed of this journey for many years. Toma was part of a small team of archaeologists who had come to study the ruins of an ancient Mayan city hidden deep inside the Yucatan jungle. For many days they had walked along narrow paths, crossing rivers and climbing hills. At last they stood before a tall stone structure covered in vines and moss. The walls were worn with time, yet the shape of the building was still clear. It was a temple, one that had been waiting for centuries to be seen again. The leader of the team, a man named Rico, raised his hand. "This is it," he said with wonder. "The Sun Temple." The stories say it was built not only for worship but also for something greater. The team began their work. They cleared the vines and brushed away the dirt. Slowly, more of the stone walls appeared. Toma ran his fingers over the carvings etched into the surface. The carvings were not only of animals and plants but also of circles, lines, and star-like shapes. They seemed to tell a story, but one that Toma could not yet understand. Inside the temple, the air was cool and filled with the faint smell of earth. Sunlight streamed through cracks in the roof and danced across the walls. The explorers walked deeper into the chamber until they reached a wide hall. There in the center stood something unexpected. A golden panel rose from the floor to the ceiling. It was smooth and shining, even though it had been hidden for centuries. The light from above reflected across its surface, filling the hall with a soft glow. Toma's breath caught in his throat. He had read many books about Mayan ruins, but none of them had described anything like this. "This cannot be real," whispered Mira, another member of the team. She reached out her hand but stopped just before touching the surface. How could gold remain so bright after all this time? Rico walked slowly around the panel. "This is not ordinary gold," he said. "Look closely. The surface is marked with patterns." Toma leaned forward. The golden panel was covered with small carvings arranged in lines and circles. At first they looked random, but when Toma studied them more carefully, he noticed they formed shapes like the constellations he had seen in the night sky. His heart began to race. "These are stars," he said softly. "This is a map of the sky." The team gathered closer, each of them studying the golden surface. The panel showed suns, moons, and planets aligned in ways that matched the heavens. Yet some of the patterns seemed to reach far beyond what the eye could normally see. Mira turned to Rico. "If this is a star map, it means the Mayans knew more than we thought. They must have built this temple not only for rituals but also to follow the movements of the sky." Rico nodded. "Yes, but the question is how. How did they place gold in such a hidden place, and how did they carve it with such care?" Toma could not stop looking at the panel. The golden surface seemed alive under the light, as if it were waiting to share a secret. His mind filled with questions. Why would the Mayans hide such knowledge in the heart of the jungle? Was this a gift to future generations or a message to those who would one day find it? As the day passed, the team worked to record every detail. They sketched the carvings, measured the walls, and noted how the sunlight touched the golden surface at different times. Each hour, the reflection shifted, casting bright shapes onto the floor. At one point, the light formed a perfect circle in the center of the hall. Toma sat near the circle and placed his hand in the light. Warmth spread across his skin. It was gentle, almost welcoming. He closed his eyes and felt as though the temple was alive, speaking in a language of light and gold. Later, when the team rested outside the temple, an old villager from a nearby town approached them. His name was Ixa, and he carried a walking stick carved with sun symbols. He looked at Toma with calm eyes and said, "The fire of the sky once touched that temple. Long ago our people spoke of golden walls that answered to the sun. Few believed the stories, yet you have seen them with your own eyes." Toma leaned forward, curious. What did the stories say about the fire of the sky? Ixa smiled gently. "It was said that when the sun and stars stand in the right place, the temple glows as if it holds the fire of the heavens. That fire does not burn, it guides. It shows the way to knowledge greater than stone or gold." The old man's words stayed in Toma's heart. He looked back at the temple, its golden walls shining faintly even in the late afternoon light. He felt certain that what they had found was more than a ruin. It was a key, and it was waiting to be understood. As the sun began to set, the jungle grew quiet. The team prepared to rest, but Toma remained awake. He could not stop thinking about the golden panel, the carvings of stars and the circle of light on the floor. He felt that their discovery was only the beginning of something larger. Far above, the first stars appeared in the sky. Toma gazed at them and wondered if the same patterns on the panel were shining down on him at that very moment. He smiled softly. The temple had been waiting for someone to listen, and perhaps he was ready to hear. Morning sunlight spread across the jungle, touching the leaves with a golden glow. Birds sang loudly as if they were celebrating a new day. Toma stepped out of his small tent and stretched his arms. His mind was still filled with thoughts of the golden panel inside the temple. He could not forget the way the light had formed a circle on the floor. It felt like the temple was alive, watching and waiting. After breakfast, the team returned to the Sun Temple. Rico carried notebooks and measuring tools while Mira held a small lamp for the darker corners. Toma carried his sketchbook. He had spent most of the night drawing the patterns he had seen on the golden panel, but he wanted to see them again in the morning light. When they entered the chamber, beams of sunlight were already streaming through a carved opening near the roof. The light touched the golden wall and created bright reflections that shifted slowly as the sun climbed higher. "Look at this," Mira said as she pointed at the floor. The light was not scattered randomly. It formed long lines that crossed each other like paths on a map. Rico knelt down and traced the shapes with his hand. "These lines are not natural. They were planned. The builders of this temple knew how the sun would move, and they shaped the wall so the reflections would fall in this way." Toma watched closely. The lines on the floor connected to some of the carvings on the wall. One line stretched from a carved circle that looked like the sun to another shape that looked like a cluster of stars. As the minutes passed, the reflection grew brighter, as if the temple was waiting for a special moment. He opened his sketchbook and compared the drawings he had made during the night with the new shapes on the floor. To his surprise, they matched perfectly. The carvings were not just decoration. They were part of a pattern that changed with the movement of the sun. Mira tilted her head. "It almost looks like the temple is a clock, but not a clock for hours." "A clock for the sky," Rico nodded. "Yes, a calendar of light. It shows the alignment of the sun and stars. But there is something more here. The builders wanted this knowledge to be discovered only at certain times." Toma's thoughts returned to Ixa's story from the day before. The old villager had spoken of the fire of the sky that touched the temple, when the sun and stars stood in the right place. Toma felt a shiver of excitement. Perhaps they were about to see what Ixa's people had described for generations. As the sun rose higher, the light on the golden wall began to glow more strongly. The reflection spread wider, filling the chamber with brightness. The golden surface seemed to shine from within, as though it held its own light. Toma stepped closer. He noticed that the carvings on the panel were no longer dull. They sparkled as the light struck them, and new shapes appeared that he had not seen the day before. Circles within circles, stars inside suns, and paths leading outward like rays of fire. He turned quickly to Rico. "The patterns are alive. They change with the light." Rico's eyes widened. "You are right. These carvings are meant to guide us, but only when the temple aligns with the sun. We are seeing the design that was hidden until now." Mira moved toward another wall and gasped. "There are more carvings here. They were invisible yesterday, but now the light shows them. Look at this row of stars. They match the constellation we saw last night." The team gathered around the wall. The golden glow revealed shapes that connected with the panel in the center. It was as if the entire temple had been designed as one great map of the heavens. Toma could not look away. His heart beat quickly, but not from fear. It was wonder, pure and deep. He felt as though the builders of the temple were speaking to him across centuries, showing that they too had looked at the stars and dreamed of understanding their secrets. Hours passed as the team studied the glowing lines. Each shift of the sun brought new images. Some looked like planets, others like spirals that reached outward into the unknown. When the afternoon came, the light began to fade. The golden panel returned to its softer shine, and the hidden carvings vanished back into shadow. The chamber grew quiet again, as though the temple had finished speaking for the day. The explorers stepped outside, their eyes still filled with the memory of the golden glow. The jungle air felt heavy and warm, but their minds were light with excitement. As they sat to rest, Ixa appeared again. His walking stick tapped gently against the stone as he entered the clearing. He looked at their faces and smiled. "You have seen the alignment," he said softly. "The temple opens its heart when the sun and stars move as one." It is not only a house of stone. It is a mirror of the sky. Toma leaned forward eagerly. What happens when the alignment is complete? Ix's eyes grew distant, as though he were listening to memories carried by the wind. Then the fire of the sky enters the temple and the golden walls speak. It is said that the builders left behind a message for those who are ready to learn. That moment does not come often. You must wait and watch. The old man turned to leave, his words hanging in the air like a riddle. Toma watched him go, his heart racing with questions. The jungle grew quieter as evening arrived. The team sat together, discussing what they had seen. Each of them felt that the temple was more than history. It was a living design, built to awaken when the heavens reached their chosen place. Toma looked up at the stars once more. He wondered how many nights they must wait before the alignment revealed its full meaning. Deep inside, he knew he would not rest until the golden walls shared their secret. The night was clear, and the stars shone brightly above the jungle. Toma lay on his back near the temple, his eyes fixed on the sky. The sounds of the forest surrounded him, yet his mind was far away. He could not stop thinking about the golden panel and the shifting lights that had appeared during the day. When morning came, the team returned to the temple once again. Rico carried his tools, Mira held her lamp, and Toma brought his sketchbook filled with drawings from the past 2 days. The golden panel greeted them with its quiet shine. It felt like an old friend now, steady and patient. As the sun rose higher, light streamed into the chamber through the carved opening in the roof. The reflection touched the golden wall, then spread across the floor in bright shapes. At first, the team expected the same lines as before, but something different happened. The reflections began to form a series of dots and circles, moving slowly as the minutes passed. Mira gasped softly. This is not random. It looks like writing, but not with letters. It is a language of light. Rico crouched down and traced the shapes on the floor. It could be numbers or symbols. The Mayans often used dots and lines in their calendar. Perhaps this is connected. Toma's heart raced. He had been sketching every detail since they arrived, but this felt new. The dots and circles appeared in patterns that shifted and repeated. Some of them looked like clusters of stars, while others seemed to form paths between them. He bent over quickly and began to draw. His pencil moved fast, copying each shape before it faded. The more he sketched, the more he realized that the reflections were not only symbols but also directions. They pointed outward toward the sky beyond Earth. Look at this, Toma said, holding up his sketch. These patterns match the constellation we saw last night. And here this one looks like the path of the planets. It is showing us where to look. Rico studied the drawing with serious eyes. You are right. This is more than a map of the stars above us. It is pointing somewhere specific, as if the temple is sending a signal. The golden panel continued to glow, brighter now, filling the chamber with warm light. The reflections moved with a rhythm, almost like the beat of a drum or the flow of a song. The team stood in silence, listening with their eyes. Toma felt a strange sense of connection. The patterns seemed to reach into his mind, guiding him to see shapes he had never noticed before. It was as if the builders of the temple had left behind a puzzle, waiting for someone to put the pieces together. Hours passed, and the patterns shifted again. The dots formed a circle that pulsed with light. For a brief moment, the entire chamber seemed to glow, and the golden panel hummed softly. The sound was faint, like the whisper of wind, yet it filled Toma with calm energy. Mira pressed her hand to her chest. It feels alive. The temple is not just reflecting light. It is responding to the sky. Rico nodded slowly. This could be the signal that the old villager spoke of. The fire of the sky entering the temple. If so, we are standing inside a message left for us to uncover. Toma placed his hand near the glowing circle on the floor. Warmth spread across his palm. He closed his eyes and imagined the light traveling upward into the heavens, reaching far beyond the jungle. He wondered if the signal was meant for humans, or if it had once been meant for others who traveled between the stars. When the afternoon sun began to fade, the glow softened. The golden wall returned to its quiet shine, and the dots and circles disappeared. The chamber grew still again, as though the temple had spoken all it could for the day. Outside, the team sat together, their minds buzzing with questions. Mira turned to Toma. You saw how the patterns pointed to the sky. Do you think the Mayans knew of other worlds? Toma thought carefully. Maybe they did not travel to the stars, but they looked at the sky with open eyes. They built this temple to connect with something larger than themselves. It feels like they wanted us to remember that we are part of the same universe. Ixa appeared once more at the edge of the clearing. His calm steps carried him toward the group. He looked at Toma's sketches and gave a small nod. You have seen the signal. It is the breath of the temple, the way it calls to the sky. Long ago, our people believed the golden walls were like the face of the sun, shining a path toward wisdom. Toma leaned forward. But why would they leave such a message? For who? Ixa tapped his walking stick on the ground. Perhaps for those who come after. Perhaps for those who are beyond. The fire of the sky is not bound by one people or one time. It is shared with all who seek. The old man's words filled Toma with quiet wonder. He looked back at the temple, its walls glowing softly in the evening light. He knew now that the golden surface was more than decoration. It was a signal, a language of light and pattern designed to reach across time and space. As night fell, the stars appeared once again, bright and endless above the jungle. Toma traced the constellations with his eyes, searching for the same patterns he had seen inside the temple. For the first time, he felt as though the sky was not distant but close, speaking through light and fire. He closed his sketchbook gently. The signal had been given, and it was only the beginning. The next morning arrived with a calm breeze moving through the jungle. The sun rose slowly, painting the leaves with a soft golden light. Toma woke early, his mind restless with the memory of the signal inside the temple. He felt certain that the temple was not finished with its message. When the team entered the chamber again, the golden wall stood waiting. It looked quiet at first, but Toma sensed something different in the air. The light streaming in from the roof opening seemed stronger than before, as if the day itself was charged with meaning. Rico placed his tools on the ground and studied the panel carefully. We must watch every change today. The last 2 days have shown us patterns, but I believe the temple has more to reveal. Mira nodded and lit her small lamp, though the chamber was already bright. It feels like the walls are listening. I know it sounds strange, but when I stand here it feels as though the temple is awake. Toma agreed silently. He could not explain it, but the golden wall gave him the same feeling. It was not only stone and gold. It was something more, something alive with the memory of those who built it. As the sun climbed higher, the first beams touched the golden surface. At once, the panel began to glow with a soft radiance. The carvings that had seemed faint yesterday now shone clearly, their details bright and sharp. Circles within circles, paths crossing like rivers, and suns at the center of spirals all came alive with light. The glow spread slowly across the chamber. This time it did not form dots or lines on the floor. Instead, the light filled the air itself, as though the golden panel was releasing its warmth into the space around them. The explorers felt it on their skin, a gentle heat that was not burning but calming. Mira placed her hand on her chest. Do you feel that? It is like standing under the sun but without harm. It is peaceful. Rico's eyes widened. The temple is responding to the alignment. It is not only showing patterns, it is awakening. Toma stepped closer to the golden wall. The glow reflected in his eyes as he raised his hand. He held it just above the surface without touching. A faint vibration moved through the air, almost like the sound of a low note on a flute. The sound was soft, yet it surrounded them. He whispered, "It feels like a song, but one we can only hear with our hearts." The others stood still, listening. The chamber seemed filled with a melody that did not come from instruments, but from light and warmth. The golden surface pulsed gently, as if in rhythm with the sun outside. Toma closed his eyes and allowed the warmth to move through him. For a moment he felt as if he was standing not inside a jungle temple but beneath the vast sky. He saw stars swirling above, planets glowing in their paths, and the great fire of the sun at the center of it all. It was not frightening. It was welcoming, like being part of a larger family of light. Rico spoke quietly, not wanting to break the moment. This must be what the stories described. The fire of the sky touching the golden walls. It is not fire that destroys, but fire that awakens. As the light continued, new images appeared across the panel. The carvings shifted in the glow, showing not only stars but also figures of people raising their arms toward the sky. They looked like guardians or messengers, carved with care, to remind those who entered that humans were part of the design. Mira pointed at the figures. The builders wanted us to see this. They wanted us to know that we belong to the sky as much as the earth. Toma's heart filled with wonder. He felt as though the builders were speaking directly to him across time, saying that humanity was not small or forgotten, but chosen to take part in the beauty of the cosmos. For hours, the chamber remained alive with light and sound. The explorers did not speak much, for they felt words were too heavy for what they were witnessing. They only watched, listened, and let the golden warmth surround them. Finally, as the sun moved lower in the sky, the glow began to fade. The soft sound drifted away, leaving the chamber silent again. The golden wall returned to its quiet state, shining gently but no longer pulsing with fire. The team stepped outside into the late afternoon air. The jungle seemed brighter, the colors of the leaves and flowers more vivid than before. Even the air smelled fresher, as though the temple had shared its energy with the world around it. Ixa was waiting at the edge of the clearing. He looked at their faces and nodded slowly. "You have felt the awakening," he said. "The temple has opened its heart to you. It gives warmth, not to harm, but to guide. This is the gift of the fire of the sky." Toma stepped closer. But what comes next? The signal has shown patterns, and now the temple has awakened. What is it leading to? The old villager tapped his walking stick on the ground. When a path is lit, it means there is more to walk. The builders did not create this temple only for wonder. They built it to point the way forward. Watch carefully. The next sign will come when the sun and stars meet again. As the evening grew quiet, Toma sat near the temple, his thoughts racing. He felt changed by the light he had felt on his skin, by the song he had heard in the silence. The temple was not only a monument of the past, it was alive, guiding them towards something greater. He looked up at the rising stars and whispered, "We are part of this fire." The night was quiet, and the jungle rested under a sky filled with stars. Toma sat near the golden temple wall, his sketchbook open on his knees. He drew slowly, copying every detail he remembered from the glowing patterns. The memory of the soft song inside the chamber still lingered in his heart. He felt as though the temple was waiting for another step, a greater sign that would reveal its true purpose. The following morning, the team gathered again. Rico carried new measuring tools, Mira held a bundle of clean papers, and Toma walked beside them with his sketches. The golden wall shone faintly in the early light, calm yet expectant. Rico spoke with determination. "We have seen the temple signal. We have felt it awaken. If the stories are true, the next stage will be even more powerful. We must stay here until it happens." Mira agreed. "The patterns we saw were not the end. They were directions. The temple is preparing to show us more." Toma nodded. He felt the same certainty. Something inside him whispered that the temple was not just a map, but also a bridge, a way to connect Earth with the stars above. As the day passed, they studied the carvings again. The golden panel remained calm until the sun reached the highest point. Then the chamber brightened, and the carvings shimmered with light. At first, it was the same gentle glow they had seen before. But soon the light began to gather, focusing into a single point at the center of the panel. The explorers stepped back, watching in awe. The golden surface reflected the sunlight into a narrow beam that cut across the chamber. It struck the floor, then rose upward, passing through the roof opening and into the sky. Mira gasped. "The temple is projecting the light. Look at how straight it is. It is like a golden path leading to the heavens." Rico shielded his eyes. "This is the alignment. The builders designed the temple to capture the fire of the sun and send it upward. It is not only a signal, it is a bridge of light." Toma stood at the edge of the beam, his face glowing in its warm brightness. He felt no harm, only calm energy flowing through him. He lifted his hand into the beam, and for a moment he felt weightless, as if the light was carrying him beyond the chamber and into the stars. He whispered, "It is showing us the way." Outside, the beam of light rose above the jungle canopy. Birds circled around it, their wings glowing as they passed through the golden path. The villagers from nearby fields stopped their work and gazed in wonder. The temple had been silent for centuries, but now it was alive, shining a message to the skies. The explorers hurried outside to see the full sight. The beam reached high into the sky, so straight and bright that it seemed endless. It connected Earth to the heavens, a glowing thread of fire and gold. Mira placed her hands together. It is like a ladder of light. It makes the stars feel close. Toma's heart beat quickly. He remembered Ixa's words, that the temple did not hold fire that destroyed, but fire that guided. This was the guidance, a path for human eyes to follow. He felt the builders had created this temple not for themselves alone, but for future generations, so that one day people would remember to look outward. As the sun continued its journey across the sky, the golden beam shifted slowly. It pointed toward a group of stars in the east. The light grew brighter as it aligned with them, as though marking a destination. Rico raised his notebook. The beam is not random. It is pointing directly at that constellation. Perhaps it is telling us where the builders wanted us to look. Toma followed the direction with his eyes. The stars were faint in the daylight, but he could see the pattern. It matched the sketches he had drawn the day before. The same cluster had appeared in the signal inside the temple. Now the golden beam was confirming it. This is the path, Toma said softly. The temple is teaching us to follow the stars. It is showing us that we are not alone on the earth, but part of the universe. As the afternoon passed, the beam began to fade. The light grew softer until it disappeared back into the golden wall. The temple returned to silence, though the memory of the glowing path remained strong in their minds. The villagers who had gathered nearby whispered among themselves, speaking of old stories that had come to life before their eyes. Some bowed respectfully toward the temple, while others stood in silence, filled with awe. Ixa arrived and looked up at the sky. His eyes were calm but bright. "You have seen the journey begin," he said. "The golden fire rises not to burn, but to lead. It shows the way to wisdom beyond the horizon." Toma felt a deep sense of purpose. He realized that the temple was not only a monument of the past, but also a message for the future. The builders had trusted that one day people would be ready to see the beam and understand its meaning. That night, when the stars filled the sky, Toma sat outside the temple and traced the constellation with his finger. It glowed faintly above him, waiting to be followed. For the first time, he felt as though the sky was not distant but close, connected to the earth by the golden path. He smiled and whispered to himself, "The journey has begun." The morning sun rose gently over the jungle, filling the temple courtyard with soft light. Toma woke early, filled with excitement. He remembered the golden beam from the day before and the way it had pointed toward the stars. He felt that the temple had more to show them. Today might be the day they discovered the next secret. The team entered the chamber once more. The golden wall stood calm, waiting. Rico carefully measured the sunlight as it streamed through the carved opening in the roof. Mira held her lamp, ready to illuminate the darker corners. Toma carried his sketchbook and pencil, eager to record anything new. As the sun reached a perfect angle, the golden panel began to glow. At first, it was the familiar soft light, but soon, small cracks appeared in the floor near the panel. Dust floated upward as if the temple itself was breathing. Rico knelt down and examined the cracks. "This is not natural. Something is hidden beneath the floor." Toma's heart raced. He stepped closer and brushed away loose stones. Slowly, a hidden chamber revealed itself. Inside were several golden discs, stacked carefully. They were small enough to hold in one hand, but large enough to show intricate carvings on both sides. Mira gasped softly. "They are beautiful. Look at the patterns." Toma picked up the first disc. It was cool to the touch and perfectly smooth. The carvings were not random. They showed stars, planets, and circles connected by lines. Some symbols looked like suns, moons, and waves of energy. It was a map of the sky, but also of movement, cycles, and balance. "These are not treasures of wealth," Toma whispered. "They are treasures of knowledge." Rico examined the disc carefully. The builders left a guide. "This is wisdom meant to teach. Look at the patterns." They show time, stars, and harmony with nature. The Mayans wanted people to understand the universe, not just the Earth. Toma turned the disc over. On the other side, the carving seemed simpler but full of meaning. Figures of people raised their arms toward the stars. Paths of light connected them to suns and planets. It was as if the builders were showing how humans could align with the rhythm of the cosmos. Mira held another disc. The discs are instructions, not for machines but for understanding. The temple was a classroom for the sky. The golden light in the chamber shifted and reflected off the discs. Toma noticed that each disc glowed faintly as it moved into the sunlight. It was as though the knowledge itself wanted to be seen and shared. Rico smiled. This is the gift the temple offers. Not gold or jewelry, but wisdom for the future. The builders trusted that someday people would be ready to learn. Toma felt a wave of gratitude. He understood that the temple had been waiting, not for fame or discovery, but for humans who were curious, patient, and willing to look beyond themselves. He held the disc close and studied the patterns. They were simple yet powerful. He could trace the cycles of the sun and moon, follow the movement of planets, and see the connections between all things. It was not complicated, but it required care, attention, and respect. Mira turned to him. The temple wants us to remember that knowledge is a gift. It is not forced. We must choose to understand and follow it. Toma nodded. He felt the meaning deeply. The temple was not finished. It was alive with purpose, offering humans a chance to grow, to look outward, and to connect with the universe. Outside the chamber, Ixa appeared quietly. He smiled when he saw the golden discs. The gift has been given, he said softly. The temple shows not wealth but the way to harmony. It shares the wisdom of the sun, the stars, and the fire of the sky. Those who are ready will carry it forward. Toma looked around the chamber at the golden panels and the discs. He felt a new sense of responsibility. The knowledge was not only for him or his team, it was for all who could learn from it, for humanity to grow and remember its place in the universe. As the sun continued its path across the sky, the golden light in the chamber softened. The discs glimmered in the fading glow, waiting for careful hands to study them. The temple had spoken through the light, through the patterns, and now through the discs. Its gift was complete, and yet it was only the beginning. Toma held the disc and whispered quietly, "We must share this wisely. The temple trusted us with something greater than gold." Mira smiled. "And we will. We will learn, remember, and teach others what the temple shows us," Rico nodded. The builders believed humans could understand the universe if we looked with care. Now we see why. The gift of the temple is hope, wisdom, and guidance for all. As evening fell, the explorers stepped outside. The jungle seemed brighter, the colors more vivid, the air filled with a gentle warmth. Toma looked up at the stars, remembering the golden beam that had pointed the way yesterday. Now he understood. The temple had given them a path and a message, a gift that would guide humanity for generations to come. He held the disc close to his chest and smiled. The golden fire of the temple had shared its wisdom, and he felt ready to follow its guidance. The morning sun rose gently over the jungle, spilling golden light across the trees and ruins. Toma woke early, carrying the golden disc he had studied the day before. He felt a quiet excitement. The temple had shared its gift, and now it was time to understand what it truly meant for the future. The team entered the Sun Temple together. Rico carried his notebooks. Mira held the remaining discs, and Toma walked carefully between them, feeling the calm warmth of the golden walls. The chamber seemed still yet alive with memory. It was as if the temple were watching, observing, and waiting to see what they would do next. Toma placed the disc gently on the central table. The golden wall reflected sunlight into the chamber, and the patterns on the discs glimmered softly. The symbols of stars, suns, and pathways seemed to shine with meaning now, clearer than ever. Mira looked around in wonder. The temple has shown us knowledge, patterns, and guidance. It has awakened us to the sky and the stars. But what does it want us to do with it? Rico smiled calmly. It wants us to remember, to learn, to share wisely. This knowledge is not for possession, but for understanding. The temple has trusted humanity to carry it forward. Toma studied the discs once more. The lines connecting stars and suns formed a rhythm, a design of balance. He realized that the Mayans had not only observed the sky, but had also left a guide for humans to grow in harmony with the universe. He turned to his team. The temple is teaching us that we belong to something greater. It is showing that the earth, the sun, and the stars are all connected. We must honor that connection, carry this knowledge, and share it with care. Outside, the jungle was alive with sounds. Birds called to each other, insects hummed, and the leaves rustled softly in the wind. It felt as if the earth itself was responding to the knowledge they had received. The team stepped outside and looked at the temple. Its golden wall glowed faintly in the morning sun, quiet and calm once more. Ixa appeared again, leaning on his walking stick. His eyes were calm but filled with pride. "You have learned the lessons," he said softly. "The temple has trusted you to carry the fire of the sky forward. Remember, the fire does not burn, it guides. It shows the path to knowledge and harmony." Toma smiled. "We understand. The temple has given us wisdom, not treasure. It has shown us the stars, the patterns, and the way to live with the earth and sky." Mira nodded. "And it has shown us hope. That humans can connect with the universe if we look carefully and with respect." Rico added, "The temple has stood for centuries waiting for someone to understand. Now it is our responsibility to share this knowledge with the world, not as a secret but as guidance." The team spent the day organizing the discs and sketches. They made notes about the patterns, the alignments, and the golden beam that had pointed to the stars. Each disc was carefully studied and documented, so the lessons could be shared without taking them from the temple itself. As evening approached, Toma walked to the center of the courtyard. The sun was low, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. He looked at the golden wall one last time. Its calm shine seemed to smile at him, as if acknowledging that the lesson had been understood. He raised his hand to the sky and whispered quietly, "We are part of your fire. We will follow your path." The stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Toma traced the constellations with his eyes, remembering the patterns on the discs and the alignment of the golden beam. For the first time, he felt the connection fully. Earth, sun, stars, and humans were part of a single design. The temple had not only given knowledge but also trust. Ixa watched him silently. "The fire of the sky shines in all who are ready," he said. "It is not for one person, one time, or one place. It is for everyone who seeks to understand the universe." Toma smiled, feeling the weight of the temple's trust and the joy of the gift it had shared. He knew that humanity had a chance to grow, to learn, and to live in harmony with the universe. The golden walls had taught them patience, observation, and care. They had shown that knowledge is a gift meant to guide, not to dominate. As the night fully arrived, the stars glimmered brightly above the jungle. Toma and his team sat together, looking up and tracing the constellations. The golden discs and the temple behind them seemed to glow softly in the moonlight, a gentle reminder of the wisdom they had received. Toma whispered again, "The temple is not only a place of the past, it is a guide for the future. We are ready to follow." The jungle was quiet, the stars shone, and the golden sun temple rested, its purpose fulfilled for now. Humanity had received its gift, a message of hope, knowledge, and alignment with the fire of the cosmos. Toma knew that this was only the beginning of a journey that would stretch far into the future. A journey of understanding, care, and wonder. And with that, the story of the Mayan Sun Temple came to a close, leaving a legacy of light and knowledge for all who would look to the stars.